I thought I'd spend a few minutes talking about why we ought to be studying American government in the first place. It's a very interesting topic, one that I've spent most of my professional career looking at, and one that I still don't fully understand. America is a contradiction, it's a work in progress, it takes work to be American, and we're always evolving. We're in the process of becoming. We've come a long way since a group of pilgrims left Europe to try to create a new life in the New World, to try to leave behind some of the issues and challenges they were having, to seek religious freedom, to avoid persecution, all of the things that we know from history. And then once they got here, they started repeating a lot of those things. They were anything but religious tolerant. They were anything but open and accepting of all people. They were very biased and prejudiced. So they brought a lot of the things from Europe with them that they were trying to escape and reestablish them here. So into this environment becomes the James Locke and this notion of natural law and this notion that all men are created equal that we instituted within our Declaration of Independence. And we all know the problem is that when they said all men are created equal, it didn't really mean all mankind. It was on all men. And not just all men, but all white men. And not just all white men, but all white property-owning men. And we've evolved from that to the day, the challenges that we're having in the country as we address American government today, of how that idea of all men are created equal hasn't really translated well into how we run America, about how we deal with fellow citizens. So we have this declaration that says all men are equal. It says this idea that government is formed to help secure those natural rights that Locke talked about. And then we had a constitution came along to try to implement a government that balanced the need for a strong central government without being too restrictive, not to be too burdensome on the states themselves, which is exactly what we were trying to escape when we left Britain to form our own nation. And since that time, we've continued to evolve. We've continued to grow. The Founding Fathers, and one of the strengths of the American Constitution is it is evolutionary. It does change as new information. The Founding Fathers could not have envisioned AK-47s and M16s and the type of armament we have when they talked about the right to bear arms. They could not have understood the influence of the media and mass communication and instantaneous news and the impact that has on the right to free speech. In search and seizure and criminal law, they could not have envisioned the growth in technology that we have. All of which makes these things much more difficult. So as you study American government, you can't really get a good handle on it without looking at Supreme Court cases and how the Supreme Court rules. And while they may not be the most exciting reading for those of you interested in American government and how it's formed and how it grows and how it evolves, the knowledge that the Supreme Court justices have along with their clerks and the other folks that do the research for them, how important it is for an understanding of how we've evolved. And we'll continue to do that throughout your lifetime and generations to come as long as there is the United States. And there was a wonderful movie out several years ago called The American President, which is, a dated movie, of course, at this time. But at the end, after he's had some challenges with the media and unfair attacks and things of that nature, he has this great long soliloquy. And it says basically that America's not easy, that we have freedom of speech, but the freedom of speech is not only your right to say what you want, but my right to disagree. And even though we disagree, we have to defend each other's rights to be able to say those things. Well, what does it say when we reach a time in this country where we no longer have freedom of speech? And what about freedom of the press? John Kennedy once said that free speech in the media may not be the easiest thing to deal with, but America couldn't survive without that open access, without the media throwing up a mirror to us. And one of the challenges, of course, comes is what do we mean by the media today? It seems that anyone with a cell phone can become a journalist and can capture sights and sounds. And then we have to decide how accurate are those. The old notion is, every picture tells a story, or a picture's worth 1,000 words, but is that necessarily the truth? It's from one perspective, from one point of view, with one time frame. And how do we deal with that as Americans? How do we deal with immigration? How do we deal with these other challenges that we're facing and still try to be true to this notion that all men are created equal? Do we only mean that for American citizens? Does it only mean that it only applies to people who are born and raised in this country? And those are the challenges that are there. Democracy depends, in American democracy more than most, depends on an informed electorate, on folks like you learning about our system of government and actively participating. Because decisions are made by those that show up. Decisions are made by those who take the time and the interest and learn the system and then show up and vote and participate in the process and run for office. And that's what we're trying to do in this class, is highlight some of those challenges that we all face as a nation and how dependent we are on citizens jumping up, taking their proper place, and actively participating in the process, which is governance. And it's going to continue to change and evolve. If you sit now today and write where you think America will be in 25 years, what do you think? How different will we look? How different will technology make us? And that's a challenge we face, and we have to learn about our system of government. We have to learn about our processes. We have to learn about how important it is that we participate in the process. And I'll say, and I've said before, and I'll continue to say, that's one of the goals of a class like mine in American government, is to encourage you to participate in the process. Because without that participation, again, the rules are written by those that show up. We have the right of petition, but how many of you have ever written your senator or your congressman or written the president? How many of you have ever joined a group? And I realize you're starting out in life. I mean, most of you have just graduated from high school and are trying to determine what you want to be when you grow up and where you want to be and what contributions you want to make. But understand, it's our government, our system of laws, our policies that government puts forth that make all those things available, regardless of what line of work you go into. And that then becomes a challenge. America is not easy. Being a citizen is not easy. We have to know our responsibilities as well as our rights. We have to understand that we're constantly changing and evolving. And if we're going to be true to this notion of what it's like to be an American, about this idea of natural law, these notions about equality, we're going to have to look at ourselves and look at how we deal with other people. Unfortunately, so much of what we deal with in life has to do with values. And my values are different than your values. Not right or wrong, good or bad, but different values. And we tend to view the world and experiences that we have through this lens of our values, of right or wrong, or good or bad. And the purpose of government has little to do with values in the abstract. It basically says what's legal and what's not legal. It doesn't say it's right or wrong. It doesn't say it's good or bad. It doesn't say whether it's moral or immoral or ethical or unethical. It says this behavior is legal and that behavior is not legal. And based on that, the full force of the law, full force of government comes into play to enforce that notion of legality. And if that reason alone is not enough to get you to participate, then it's your future, your job, your career, your family, your children, your grandchildren, and their ability to continue to enjoy the benefits of the country. And we have to understand that just because we have our views and our values, others have theirs and they're equally believed. How do we balance those things? And we said in one of our handouts that we talked about this idea of the contract theory and us joining together. Is it who's right? And how do we balance those competing rights? And that was what Locke talked about with this idea of natural law. This idea that everybody will pursue self-interest and government tries to come out and somehow balance those competing interests for the good of all. As we'll read in the future evidence of this is in the Founding Fathers writing in the Federalist Paper number 10. He said that basically if men were angels, government wouldn't be necessary. And that's basically straight out of John Locke and this notion of natural law. If we all respected that and respected those rights of each other's, then we wouldn't need government. But that's why we have it. So that's why the study of government, the study of American government specifically, to my view, is so critically important because it impacts every aspect of our life. And knowing it, understanding it, participating in it is going to be how we make a difference and continue the growth that is America and that will be America in the future. So enjoy the readings, enjoy the writings, ask questions, discuss, think about these things, and understand that we now have a big election coming up in November, which is going to be basically a great choice of which direction we head as a country. Understanding American government, understanding politics, understanding policies, understanding the challenges we face should hope make us better informed as we go to vote and participate in the process. Just thoughts for today. Have a blessed day.